Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg with Duke the Beach Bug. I'm going to put him down because he's heavy as heck.
Heavy as heck.
Welcome to Friday and Facebook Live and the Sales Pro Network. We are getting some echo there, aren't we? All right. Sorry about that. I'm not sure how to figure that out, but you get to hear me twice and you get to hear all our wonderful guests twice. Anyways, I formed the Sales Pro Network because I wanted to elevate the profession of sales. It's a place where salespeople can come and ask questions, get answers, coaching, share your successes, share your failures, share anything you'd like to share. And every Friday at 10 a.m., we bring you incredible guests, and not only one incredible guest today, not only two incredible guests, but I brought you three incredible guests. These are my favorite LinkedIn gurus, and I know a lot of LinkedIn experts, but boy, oh boy, none who I love more than the three that you're looking at right now. I'm going to give them a moment to each introduce themselves. Guys, could you each take maybe a minute to say who you are and what you do, and I'm going to start at the top right. Bryn Tillman.
Hi, and Jeff, we're hearing some wacky noises coming from you, just so you know. I don't know if you guys are hearing them from me too.
Aquaman, yeah, sounds like he's underwater.
All right, well, I am Bryn Tillman. Pleasure to be here with some of my favorite people. I'm the CEO of Social Sales Link, and we help business development professionals schedule more sales conversations by using LinkedIn.
Perfect. And is that any better? I changed the setting.
Much better, much better.
Okay.
A little bit. Getting some no's and some yeses.
Water now.
We might have to go back to Zoom next time. How about you,
Jeff?
Beth Granger?
Before I introduce myself, do you have Facebook open as well? That could be you could be hearing yourself. Oh well, technology.
You hear an echo when Jeff speaks. Thank you, Fran. There's an echo at Jeff. I'll just shut up. How about that?
No. Echo, there's only an echo when Beth speaks. Beth, speak.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yep, that's okay.
All right, guys, we're going to work this out somehow, or we'll have to put up with it this time, and I'll try to get it for next time. Beth, would you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Beth Granger. I'm a trainer, consultant, and speaker on the topic of growing your business and brand using LinkedIn and networking. And I love being here with these three amazing people.
I do too. And finally, and I have to say, last but not least, be prepared for the boom. Joe Apfelbaum.
Hey, everybody. My name is Joe Apfelbaum, CEO of Ajax Union. We're a B2B digital marketing agency, and we create strategies for people on LinkedIn. And we also have an amazing course. We have 600 students in our course, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs that are learning how to go from a lurker to an influencer in just 15 minutes a day.
Wow. So if you're watching live today, please drop a hello or a boom. Oh, we are having a problem here because I'm having it myself. Damn. Okay. Beth, you saved me the first time we did this. Maybe you can figure this out. Yes, it is an all-star team. If you're watching live, please say hello or boom in the comments. And if you have not connected your Facebook to StreamYard, please say who you are. Good morning, Mitria DiGiacomo. Good morning, Fran Cole. Good morning, Facebook user, whoever you are. All right, I'm going to get started. I asked everybody if they had questions, and a few people actually did have questions for you. So we're going to start with Jennifer Scully, who asked, how do I sign into LinkedIn? I joined in 2010, but haven't been on it much since then. What do we tell somebody who hasn't been on in 11 years?
I mean, that's a simple answer. If you remember the email you used, then you just go to sign in and forgot password, and that you still have access to the email matters. If you don't have access to the email and you don't know how to log in, you can reach out to, and I would use Twitter to do this, to LinkedIn and let them know, hey, I'm locked out. I don't have access to the email. And they may be able to help you out.
Or you can even go to the Genius Bar if you have an iPhone, and you can speak to a genius, and they help with all things related to the iPhone, including how to log into LinkedIn. Believe it.
Do they really?
They do. They do.
Gotta love it.
Yeah.
I would never have thought that, by the way, is my dream retirement job.
Being a genius?
Being a genius.
I would do it too. I would love it.
That's my dream retirement job.
Wait a minute. Genius or grandmother?
Oh, grandmother. Bubby.
I'm
actually
chicken soup right now, so.
Good morning, Katie Karlova. It's good to see you. And Mitria, good morning. Says good morning to all. The second question, which I like this one very much, Cliff Pafford. I hope you don't mind me calling you Cliff. He said Clifford Pafford. When do you move the conversation from LinkedIn to a call? And what words work well? What can you say to initiate that shift when you're trying to? I'm assuming that Clifford is asking about developing a relationship before you start selling. So Beth, why don't we start with you? How do you move that conversation to a call?
Sure. Well, the key is not to do it too soon. If you do it too soon, we've all had that happen to us, right? We haven't earned the right yet to ask for that conversation. So it's like any relationship. You just know or sense when it's okay to have that conversation. And some people it's sooner than others. Some people it's a networking conversation, not a sales conversation at first. So when you've had conversation back and forth and the other person's asking you questions, you're asking them questions, you feel like, wait a minute, we've had this conversation, we want to have more. How about we jump on a call? So simple as that in my book.
Got it. And, I've spoken with each of you separately about this, and I'm glad to have you all together. One of my least favorite things about LinkedIn is the people who reach out to you to connect, and then you accept the connection, and within a millisecond, you've got another note from them that says, hey, I'd like to show you how I help coaches like you get 10 million leads in a day, and I charge you nothing. I'll take that call, except it's not real. So, Bryn, how do we feel about that? I know how I feel about it. What advice?
So connect and pitch is a bait and switch. It just is. And we have to treat the people on the other side of the message the same way we would if they were on the other side of the table. So just like Beth said, we've got to treat that. They are human beings. They're not leads. Let's stop looking at every one of our connections as a lead and let's start real conversations. So to the question that I love is, and Beth also said one of my favorite things, which is you've got to earn the right to get that conversation. So the initial conversation should not be about you and your business. There are lots of scenarios, but if one of the scenario is they've engaged on your content, let's say we'll start there. And now I want to take it from them engaging or commenting on my content to a conversation. What can I do? Well, clearly they have interest in that topic. So maybe I reach out to them in the inbox and say, Beth, thanks so much for engaging on my content. If this is a topic that's interesting to you, I have a podcast that I'd love to share with you where you get these 3 takeaways. If you're interested, let me know. I'm happy to send the link. Don't send the link. Get permission to send the link. That's where you start to build trust, right? Yeah, that's right. You start to build trust. You start to build rapport. They don't feel spammed. They're like, wow, going above and beyond, providing value that is not a pitch. And then if they say, yeah, I'd love that, you send the podcast with additional, I've got a lot of other insights around this topic. I'd love to talk to you. Love your insights around this. You can at one point send a poll to them and ask them for their vote or their thoughts around that. But you can gradually continue to talk about that topic as it leads to, I'd love to share more, or I'd love your insights. Are you open to jumping on a call?
So permission-based marketing is really what you're talking about.
Permission-based everything. That's the only way we can almost guarantee you're not showing up as a spammer.
Got it. And before I go to Joe, good morning, Steve Sapato. He says, I'm a genius, but now I need a bar. Good morning, Steve Kent. It's good to see you. And Beth is saying, yes, Bryn Tillman. Beth loves what Bryn's saying. So Joe, Bryn was talking about somebody who's engaged with your content, but what about someone who you found on LinkedIn and you said, oh my God, this is a perfect prospect for me. This is somebody who needs me. How do you make that initial reach out to them? And then how do you gain the right to actually have a sales conversation with them when you're really reaching out cold?
So when it comes to, there's 2 things. There's first sending the connection request. So before you actually can message somebody, if you're not in the same group and you're not using InMail, what you need to do is you need to send a connection request to people. And now LinkedIn has a limit between 100 and 150 connection requests per week. And we have ways to kind of get around that. There are ways that you can connect your computer or your technology to LinkedIn and then send 2,500 connection requests at one time. But if you want to send out a connection request to somebody that looks interesting, you got to have a reason. Jeff Goldberg, who is my sales coach, and he's an amazing trainer, and he's hosting this event right now, he always says that people do things for a reason. So why would somebody want to connect with you? So you have to have a good reason for them to want to connect with you, not just that you have mutual connections and not because I saw that you're the CEO of a company that I'd like to sell something to. That's not a good reason. That's a good reason for them to reject you. So have a good reason for them to connect with you and make sure that you build some trust even in that connection message. And how do you build trust? But you referencing a mutual connection or something that they've done on their profile that you have to do with. So I call it connection, context, and customization. So connection is building that trust, context is the reason, and customization is showing that you actually looked at their posts, you actually looked at their profile, you actually saw something there. And if you can have those three, people are much more likely to actually hit the accept button because they see that you're a real human being and not a robot. A lot of people are using automation with LinkedIn, and it is against the terms and conditions, but they do throw a blind eye to people that have Sales Navigator and use some levels of automation, not the crazy stuff where you're abusing it, but if you're kind of doing it like in a dripping fashion and it's not so terrible, they're going to turn a blind eye to people that are paying for Sales Navigator and use some form of automation. Although we don't recommend it, the sales trainer, LinkedIn trainers always say do not use any automation at all. But there are people that still use it. We all know that there are like hundreds of technologies out there that people can use to automate the process. And that's why sometimes you get these automated connection requests that have these errors on them or that say F name or something like that. They're not saying, like they're not effing your name. What they're basically saying is it's a variable to try to get your name in there, and sometimes it breaks and it says F name or something. So once the person accepts the connection request, don't sell them anything. People hate to be sold, but guess what they love? They love to buy. Go to Walmart, you'll see people love to buy. So instead of selling, greet people. Thank them for connecting with you on LinkedIn. Most people don't thank their connections for connecting. I recently thanked somebody for connecting with me on LinkedIn, and he replied, he said, Joe, I really need marketing for my business. Can we get on a call? I didn't even say anything. All I did was greet him. Another greeting would be happy birthday. Another greeting would be happy Thanksgiving. Or another greeting would be happy Memorial Day. I always start with greetings because greetings don't take up time from people. A greeting is not a negative thing. And now sometimes you're going to greet somebody and they're going to be like, who the hell are you to greet me on a social media platform? And they would get angry at you. And if you have that experience, I know that I've had that experience because I greet hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people every single month. And if you ever get the experience where somebody gets annoyed that you greeted them, they're going to get annoyed that you exist. It's not your fault that they're annoyed. So don't take responsibility for their annoyance. Instead, just go out and greet people, add value. And if they respond to the greeting, then you can start feeding them. People love to get fed, and there are 5 different ways to feed people. I'm not going to get into the 5 different ways right now, unless, Jeff, of course, you want me to. But the key is there is a system and a process. And using a coach like Bryn, like Beth, like myself, you can learn the best ways to go from greeting to feeding, and eventually, when the time is right, to meeting. Now, sometimes somebody will say, hey, I just want to speak to you right now. In that case, you can set up a meeting. But if they're not showing any signals of responses, don't just assume that they want to talk to you. And don't make the 3 major mistakes people make in direct messages, which is the first one is selling. The second one is wasting people's time by just saying hi or hello or you're pretty. Don't do any of those things. Don't waste people's time. And then the third thing is don't send these really long messages. It's DM, not email. In email, you can send a whole Megillah. You can write a whole Megillah. You can write like pages and pages of stuff in email. That's fine. And if you're my wife, I might read it. Probably not. I won't read long emails in general. But if you are sending somebody a long DM, 58% of people are reading DMs on their cell phone. They're using LinkedIn from their cell phone. And if you're like me, you look and you're like, all right, this is too, I'm not reading this. I don't care. This person cannot be important enough for me to start reading their entire freaking life story. Be short, be punchy, be to the point. People look, make them respond, ask a question. And that's how you're going to go from lurker to influencer and close more deals.
So somebody who's a Facebook user, we don't know your name, said, greeting to feeding to meeting, golden Joe Applebaum. And Joel Harris says, everybody loves a happy birthday greeting. And I think he's right. Beth, so first of all, we always customize the invitation, yes?
Always.
Great.
And there are some people who say don't. And I don't understand that, especially if you're connecting with somebody that if it's your brother, you don't have to do it, right? They're going to know who you are. But it reminds people where you met, why they might want to connect with you. And also, it really helps you. So if 6 months down the line, this person comes up in your feed or you come across them, you don't remember why you know them, you can go back and see that history of the very first conversation you had and where you met them. So it helps you as much as it helps them.
Got it. So what I like to do is, we'll come to you in a second, Bryn, I like to go to the person's profile, like Joe said, and there's almost always something I can comment on to show them that I'm not just spamming 8 million people trying to get connections. You know, I even something simple like, I've seen you've been at the same company for 17 years. Wow, that's very impressive. Let's connect. Is that enough or do I need more? Bryn?
So I think people are tired of that. There was so much of that in the last year. That's not really context, and it's not, you know, so you took a minute to look at their profile, but you still have there's not what's in it for them. I'm going to go back to this, but I want to say one other thing, because I think what Beth said was golden when it comes to why you have a message. One other reason to have a message is when they accept your connection request, it comes into their inbox. So if you just send a generic connection request, once they're connected, you're not showing up anywhere else. But if you put in a personal message, now that's in their inbox as an unread message. So there's another opportunity to engage. So even if they didn't read your message originally, it's now there for them to read. And it also goes into your inbox, so you have a better chance of engaging. So I just wanted to add that, because I think what Beth said was brilliant.
Perfect. It usually is.
Yeah, that's true. But I really think cold calling on LinkedIn doesn't work. Like, this is what, even if I warmed it up by looking at their profile, especially if you're selling into companies that are getting hit all the time. So I think 3 things really work when you're prospecting on LinkedIn. My absolute favorite is an introduction or permission to name drop from a shared connection. So Jeff, I see you're connected to Beth Granger. I'm going to be reaching out to her in the next couple of weeks. But before I do, would you let me know how you know her and any insights, right? And maybe we'll jump on a 5-minute call where you could tell me what you know about Beth Granger. So we get on.
So in that instance, I want to connect with Beth, right?
No, I want to connect with Beth. I see Jeff knows Beth. I know Jeff. I'm going to reach out to Jeff and say, how do you know Beth? Oh, Beth is my bud. Would you mind just jumping on a 5-minute quick call? I'll let you know why I want to reach out to Beth, and you can tell me if you think it makes sense.
Okay.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Sure.
So while I love that, one step better is if Jeff really knows me and would make that introduction.
Well, yeah, that's what we're getting. Yeah. But first we're going to get on a call before I ask for the introduction, because I may know 10 people that are connected to Beth. I don't know if Jeff's the best one yet. Right. So I'm going to vet how well you know Beth. Right. So we get on a call, potentially. We get on a call and you're like, oh, absolutely. I love what you do. I think talking with Beth is great. And I will then say, are you open to making an introduction if that feels right? If I didn't get the vibe that you'd be comfortable with the introduction, I can say, when I reach out to Beth next week, as I told you I was going to do, is it okay if I mention your name? So Beth, Jeff Goldberg and I were chatting last week. Your name came up in our conversation. When I told him a little bit about what I do, he thought it made sense for me to reach out and introduce myself. We did a study. The introduction and the permission to name drop had almost identical results in how many, and it was about 50% of those turned into conversations. So that's what I'd prefer, you know, as far as connection requests. Yeah.
It's kind of like in networking, you know, you want an introduction from somebody who knows them. But like, if you reach out to me, Brendan, and say, hey, Jeff, I see you know Beth, you know, can you say a nice word or introduce me? Obviously, I do know Beth, but the vast majority of people I'm connected with, I don't actually know.
That's why I wouldn't reach out and ask you for a connection until I had the conversation. Or unless you come back and go, I don't know Beth at all, I go to the next shared connection. The numbers are about 20% of the people you're connected to. So if I have 5 people that are connected to Beth, one of them statistically should know who she is in a way that would be meaningful in the introduction. You're also coming in at a high level of credibility. And you know, and that there are, you know, 7 different ways to use that concept. But generally, you know, our whole philosophy is slow down your outreach to speed up your outcome. And so this is sales. This is not inbound marketing, although Joe does a lot of inbound marketing. From my perspective, the social selling side, there is a marketing component, but this piece is really, if you are looking to build a pipeline quickly, because there's a long game and a short game. The short game is referrals and permission to introductions, referrals and permission to name drop. The long game is content. And you have to use both in order to leverage social selling the right way.
And can you just speak, Joe, can you speak a little bit about using content to develop those relationships and to gain the right to sell and then be able to work with people?
If you want someone to accept your connection request, the number one thing that you can do is comment and like their content. So if I go to Beth and I send her a connection request, she might look at the connection request, she might see it, she might not see it. A lot of people miss connection requests. But if I go to her content and I start liking and commenting on her content, she's gonna click on my profile to check me out. That's probably what usually happens. People check me out when I like and comment. They're like, who's this person? They're commenting on all my stuff. This is amazing. I love that this person's engaged on my content. They will look at my profile, and on my profile, it'll say accept when they look at my profile, because they'll see, oh my God, this person has a pending invitation with me. I should totally accept them. They're an engaged LinkedIn user. It's valuable to me to accept this person. So another way for you to leverage content, and that's other people's content, is when you send them a connection request, go to their profile, like and comment on some stuff. You don't have to comment on a million things, but make sure that you like and comment on stuff. And if this person's a VIP, which means you really want to connect with them, bookmark them so you can go later, comment and like on their stuff as well. And I know Bryn talks a lot about bookmarking. It's really, really helpful. But in terms of just getting exposure, there are 3 things that you want to get out of LinkedIn if you want to get more business. You want exposure, you want credibility, and you want conversations. I know Jeff Goldberg told me that to make sales, you have to have conversations. That's really the key. And through LinkedIn, you could have conversations, but in order for it to be more likely that you're going to get conversations, you need exposure and credibility. Exposure comes from posting. If you don't post, you don't have exposure. When you post something and 100 people see it, or 1,000 people see it, or my recent poll that I posted, I'm going to put a link to it in the comments. By the way, if you guys are watching this live right now, write boom in the comments so I can see you light up. And also it'll help get this LinkedIn live out a little more. But don't just write boom with 4 letters. Write B, then enter, then O, then enter, then O, then enter, then M, then enter. Try that and let's see how many of you can get a straight boom right away. I
love a clear explanation.
Yeah, and the reason I want to do that is because I want you to leave 4 comments. And if 11 people, 20 people leave 4 comments, it's going to be 40 to 100 comments that are going to be left. And that'll really blow up the algorithm for the LinkedIn Live.
Can I add something? Can I add something to something that Joe said? He talked about commenting on other people's content. They do love that, but they love it in an authentic, not creepy way. Because sometimes somebody will suddenly like 5 of my posts, comment on 2 of them, follow me on Twitter, like my posts on Twitter. It just all at once, like within 5 minutes, it's just a little creepy. And then they send a connection request. No.
And then they endorse you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. No, I personally, that's my preference, is that I like when people comment on my stuff, even if it's in a creepy way. Like I had somebody recently comment on my last 20 posts, and I absolutely loved every single comment, and it was cute and it was fun and I liked it. So I personally like when someone does that to me, but as a woman, I could understand that sometimes you get hit up by people and it could be creepy and all that stuff. I totally get that. But from a marketing perspective, I believe that any comment will get my post out a little bit further, because when somebody leaves a comment, believe it or not, it goes into the feed of their connections. So their connections will see that comment, especially if it's a meaningful comment, like what Beth said. If it's a meaningful comment and it has more than 6 or 7 words and it adds value, because how does LinkedIn know that the comment adds value? If people like the comment. So if you see a comment that adds value, I recently left a comment on Gary Vaynerchuk's post, and I do that often, and I got over 20 likes on that particular post, on that particular comment that I left on Gary Vaynerchuk's post. Now, when I look through those 20 likes, many of them were my connections. Because when I commented on Gary Vaynerchuk, even if my connections are not connected to Gary Vaynerchuk and they're not following Gary Vaynerchuk, they're still going to see that post with my comment on it on the feed. So that adds a lot of credibility. Joe, related to Tony Robbins and to Gary Vaynerchuk and to Bill Gates. I'm like, wow, this guy Joe's wealthy. He's related to, he commented on Bill Gates's post and it was featured on the LinkedIn homepage for me. Like, what really? But that adds credibility. So leaving thoughtful comments add credibility. And here's something that I think I told Jeff and I always tell our students: create a comment that you can later repurpose as a post. Why? Because a comment can be 1,300 characters. So you could leave a really thoughtful, meaningful comment and later take that comment and use it as a post. You can take your thoughtful posts that are related to other people's posts and you could leave the content of that post as a comment. And this way you're using your comments as posts and your posts as comments. It's very strategic. As a matter of fact, what I like to do is I like to create a large article that would include at least 5 posts in it. And then off that article, I actually go and publish posts. So I have over 200 articles on LinkedIn. The difference between an article and a post is that a post usually shows up on the feed. An article doesn't show up on the feed, but an article shows up on Google. Articles are SEO friendly. The feed is usually private to LinkedIn alone. So I tell people, do post articles and take your posts and put them into articles, but then share the sections of the articles as posts. And then in the comments, you could link back to the article so people can see the full article. So that's just ways to be able to use things. But Jeff, hopefully that answers your questions and the audience like this. I want to see more booms in the comments right now. This will give Jeff more exposure and this LinkedIn Live will get out there more. So go ahead and do that.
We're getting some booms there, Joe, and thank you very much for that. And Bryn, we've got a question for you in a moment, but good morning to Scott Foreman. Wow, a blast from the past. Good to see you, my friend. Good morning, Don Levine. Glad you finally found us here on StreamYard. And I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Is it Bhavin Gandecha? I hope I pronounced that correctly. Good morning to you. Steve Sapato asked, how do I bookmark?
Love bookmarking. So if you're in Chrome or Edge, there's usually a little star up in any URL. And when you click on that, you have options to organize it by creating folders, right? So this is not LinkedIn, this is your browser. So what we highly recommend, and we talk a lot about this around influencers or magnets. So Joe talked about like Gary Vaynerchuk being a magnet, right? Gary is probably attracting a lot of people that Joe wants to do business with. So he may once a week or twice a week or 3 times a week may want to look at Gary's posts. So what we recommend is you go to Gary's profile, you click on activity, you click on posts that has its own URL. So that link, if you would copy that link and paste that link, it would go right to Gary's posts. Bookmark that in your Chrome or your Edge under influencers. And now you can go in and you can open all of those links with one click under bookmark. So it's like, I want to go engage with my influencers 15 minutes right now. I can open every one of those in a new tab. And so let's say I have 10 people to go boop, 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 open them all, and they are all exactly in their posts, which is real time. They're dynamic, so you'll see the most recent post at the top. And so that gives you the opportunity to stay organized and not have to go search and forget who was the great influencer that you found 3 weeks ago. It's all organized in bookmarks. You can also do that on a desktop folder. So if you'd prefer, and I have some clients that prefer to do it this way, they create a folder on desktop and then they create subfolders. So maybe I have influencer posts, maybe I have prospects, maybe I have clients all in folders, and you can actually drag and drop. So on Chrome, there's a little a lock at the top left. I don't know what Edge is, but they all have something. You can drag and drop that in the subfolders. Then when you're ready to engage on people in those folders, you just open them up. You can select all, right click, open a new tab, and they all open up.
So it makes it much easier to find. Go ahead, Beth.
I was just saying, it saves so much time than having to have a list and find the person, scroll down their profile, click to their activity. It just makes it so much easier.
That's what I was going to say. So it makes it quicker and easier to find the content that you're really looking for and the people that you want to follow. And I'd like to, Beth, could we speak a little bit about content? So I know for a long time I was posting meme after meme after meme because I love visuals, I love pictures. And Joe said to me, all right, enough with the memes already. Maybe once a week a meme, but he suggested I post a lot of different things. Like sometimes it's just text, sometimes it's a poll, sometimes it's a video. What's your take on content? What should people be sharing? Because I know I speak to a lot of people who say, I don't have content. I personally think everybody's got something they can speak about, but could you speak a little bit about content, Beth?
Absolutely. And first of all, everyone has content. Think of the top 10 questions you get asked by your clients or customers all the time. That's content right there. So I think people are just sometimes apprehensive because they see things that they're not sure if they're LinkedIn appropriate, but truly you get to decide, and your network. So different subsets of your network are going to like different kinds of content and see different kinds of content. Some people love video. Some people are, I don't have time to watch a video. I'd rather read something. So it's great to try all the types of content that LinkedIn gives us and see what resonates with your network, see what gets the most views, the most engagement, and do more of that and less of the other. Just like the least likely kind of post to get shown to your network is something that takes people off the platform. So say a link to New York Times article, but I'll still share that occasionally with or without the tricks to get that seen more. But it's great that we have all these different types of content. So and some news, people might not know this yet who are here with us today, they have increased the number of characters in a post, text post, from 1,300 to 3,000. And this is going to be very interesting to see if people use it well. Will people read longer content? Will it be like an article light? Too soon to tell. But anyway, so try all the kinds of content. And I agree with Joe, memes, not so much.
So I will say one of the things, so I love everything Beth just said and Joe. I mean, brilliant. I can't believe like the brilliance that just keeps coming. But some of my best content, so we always talk about capture your genius, like Beth just said. What are the top 10 questions you're answering all the time? Capture your genius. Think about whenever you answer a question to a prospect and they go, interesting, that's content, right? Just keep that in mind. And now we are on Zoom all day long. That's how we're meeting. You can record and get transcriptions. You don't even have to go back and think about what your genius. It's done for you. But my best content often, or the most engaged content, is one quote in a Canva slide, in an image slide. So that's meme-ish. But then I have more text around that. But the visual of the quote tends to do very well. So a meme of, like Will Smith doing, his Fresh Prince dance is not what works necessarily. But I don't know if you consider those quote slides as memes, but they do exceptionally well for me.
Got it. And Bryn, there seem to be two ways that people do videos. One is highly produced. Clearly, they've invested a lot of money. And then there's what I do, which is I just record them right here. It's just me speaking. Do you recommend one over the other? Is it worth the investment of money to make these highly produced videos, or is just speaking to people really the best way?
So I'm going to say it depends, but there are so many people that are out. First of all, it's very inexpensive to get those highly produced videos. It's amazing the options out there. I really like captioned videos. So there is some reproducing that I think matters. And there is a look that captures the eye that has, the topic at the top. And so I have found the higher, it doesn't have to be the like TV level production, but when there is back end production, I have found the content to do a lot better. That said, I don't want that to stop anyone from putting up video, right? Like it does not have to be that way, but the question is which one does better. I have found the produced ones do better, but some of my favorite videos are Joe walking the streets of Brooklyn, right? Like he's just walking and talking, zero production. Now, he has a high level of energy and personality that carries that. But like when I see those, they make me smile and I watch them and there's zero production, zero anything. It's like, hey, I have an idea I want to share with you. So they can do very well. You just have to make sure that they're short and to the point and punchy, and there's some takeaway in it. Like Joe always has like kind of a life lesson in something. There's always a point, right? So make sure you're not rambling like I'm doing right now. Make sure that you've got a point and that there's really some great takeaways. And then if the value is high, your viewership will be high.
Got it. So for those of you who've just joined us in the middle, I'm speaking to my three very favorite, most respected LinkedIn trainers and experts, Bryn Tillman, Beth Granger, and Joe Applebaum. If you have questions for them, please drop them into the comments. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep asking questions. But we do have one that somebody posted before. Diego Valencia asked, is it true that you should pick wisely who you link with because the algorithm will be geared towards that type for you? And he put it in quotes. For example, I linked in with a bunch of bikers because I belong to a club, but my clients are dentists. So now I'm viewed by the wrong groups or people. Is that true?
My opinion would that matter in terms of who you're connected with. Who you're connected with is typically your followers. A lot of people don't know this. When you connect with someone on LinkedIn, they become your follower. The people that you most recently connected with are the people that you're going to see their content more frequently, just for the first few days. So right when you connect with someone, you're gonna see. So sometimes it's worth disconnecting with somebody that you want them to see your content and reconnecting with them just so that they start seeing your content. Because a lot of people will just unfollow people just for the sake of unfollowing a while back. So I like disconnecting and reconnecting with people that I actually know, and it'll refreshen that connection because the connected on date is more recent, so it's more relevant. The more recent, the more relevant. But in terms of LinkedIn showing your stuff to bikers because you connected with bikers, this is not Facebook. LinkedIn is not that sophisticated. It's showing the content to the people that are following you, period. And maybe sometimes to their followers if they engage with the content. That's the key. The key is if you want dentists to see your content, connect with dentists. If you want dentists to be able to know who you are, engage in their comments. Most people don't know how to use the LinkedIn search functionality. I highly recommend you searching for people using filters and breaking down who you want to connect with and then connecting with the right people. The biggest problem that people have on LinkedIn by not getting results is because they are connected to all the wrong people. And if you have 756 million people to connect with, and you can connect to up to 30,000 people, if you only have 400 connections and they're all your classmates and none of your classmates can do business with you, then you're probably not going to get any business from LinkedIn, even if you post from today till tomorrow. So you have to have something that I call a connection strategy. And I have a personal connection strategy, and we help all our students create their own connection strategy. So I'm going to share my connection strategy, Jeff, if you want to hear it. I'm happy to share with, okay, so my connection strategy is I will connect with anyone that I know. So I know Beth, I'm going to connect with her. I go to a networking event. I know Joe, this new guy that I met at a networking event yesterday. And that was my first in-person networking event that I've gone to that was maskless, believe it or not, because we're all vaccinated. And now even the movie theaters are maskless for vaccinated people. And so the key is I right away went to his cell phone and I said, search my name and click connect. He sent me. So because if I just send him a connection request, that's not good enough. I want to make sure that it gets accepted. So on his cell phone, he searched my name, he hit connect. I went to my cell phone, I hit accept. So now I know we're connected. Now I connected to people that I know. The second thing is people that I'd like to know. So I do certain searches, like for example, marketing directors of companies that are of a certain size on LinkedIn in a certain industry, in a certain geographic location. I want to connect to those marketing directors. Why? Because marketing directors hire Ajax Union, and often they'll spend $100,000, $200,000 with our agency, and the marketing director is usually the decision maker. The CEO is the influencer. The marketing director is the decision maker often on which agency should be chosen because it's their responsibility. Marketing is their responsibility. So people that I'd like to know. So number one is people that I know. Number two is people that I'd like to know. Number three criteria is fans of Joe Applebaum. How do I know if somebody's my fan? If they like and comment on my stuff, if they DM me. So if I know somebody's name because they're a fan of mine, my goal is not to go viral. I don't want to connect to 1 million people. I want 1,000 people, 1,000 of the right people, like Bryn Tillman, like Jeff Goldberg, like Beth Granger, 1,000 of the right people to see me 1,000 times a year. And 1,000 times a year is just 3 times a day. So if you see me 3 times a day because I engage with your content, because you engage with my content, because I posted something, because we saw each other at an event, because of whatever reason, for me, if I get 1,000 interactions from my right people, I can not just make a living, I can make a fortune. So what I always tell people, don't try to go viral, get the right 1,000 connections, engage with them, build a relationship, and you're not just going to make a living, you're going to make a fortune if you have the right strategy. Because as Tony Robbins says, the right strategy will save you a decade. So go ahead and put a boom in the chat right now. I want to try to get to 100 comments. We're at about 94 right now, so we need 6 more comments on the LinkedIn Live for us to get to 100. Once we cross over the 100, the algorithm is going to start sending it to even more people. So go ahead and help us get to that 100. I put a bunch of quotes there, so make sure to give a thumbs up to all the quotes that I put inside the comments. You can actually give a thumbs up to comments. That also helps those comments rise up to the top. So go ahead, if you see a quote that resonates with you, I posted 5 or 10 of my favorite quotes, each as individual comments. Go ahead, give them a thumbs up. Thank you, guys.
And feel free to put a thumbs down for every single one that Joe put in there promoting his business. Hey, Beth, Jonathan
Can I add one quick thing to Joe's thing? Because this is, to me, is a magic feature.
Please do.
When you are at an event, if you open up your LinkedIn app, there's a little QR code in the search bar. If you click on that, there's a My Code, which has a QR code and a scan. So to Joe's point, if he wants them to connect with you, yep, there you go. That's perfect. So that's the scan. That's the My Code. The scan, it will literally open up and you can actually scan that QR code. So if you put up your QR code and you show them how to scan it, it'll take them right to your profile. And they don't even have to type in your name. So that's one of my favorite little in-person tricks.
I love a good trick. Hey, Beth, I heard Bryn earlier say that cold calling on LinkedIn just simply does not work. But I also heard Joe just now say that he reaches out cold to marketing directors. So which one is it?
Well,
what would you suggest?
Everyone has an opinion. So think about when someone reaches, think about the reverse. When someone reaches out to you, do you respond? When someone reaches out cold, I personally rarely, very rarely. So cold calling on LinkedIn or elsewhere does not work for me. If it works for the people you're trying to reach, certainly worth trying, but there are so many other ways to get to people. And where it's not a cold call, if you've engaged with their content, if they've engaged with your content, it's not a cold call, it's a warm call.
Correct.
Here's another thing I want to add to that. Beth, it's totally right. I mean, for me, what I do is when I use the filters, the number one filter that I use before I send people connection requests, the number one filter that I use when I do searches is the degree. So you can do search first degree, second degree, or third degree. I use the second degree option there all the time. Why? Because I already have mutual connections. If you have mutual connections, you have mutual trust often. Even if I'm cold direct messaging somebody, if I have mutual connections with that person, they see that and they can see what group they're part of. For example, if I'm connecting to somebody that's an entrepreneur's organization, usually we will have many mutual connections, and many of those mutual connections will be in EO, will be an entrepreneur's organization. If I'm connecting to somebody in the ABA, like Beth and Jeff are both part of the ABA, the American Business Association. So I will, if I'm connecting with them, they're going to see, oh my God, he's connected to Jeff and Beth and this person and that person and the other person. And they will be like, wow, I want to connect with this person, even if I don't leave a message, because we have those mutual connections. If the person is third degree or has no connection and they're not even active on LinkedIn, they don't even know what's going on, chances are they're not even using LinkedIn. Only 40% of people are active on LinkedIn on a regular basis. So most of the LinkedIn people that are on there are not even active, but a large percentage are. And if you can identify the people that are active, they are much more likely to connect, especially if you have mutual connections. So that's what I have to say about cold, because if we have mutual connections, it's not really that cold, is it?
Got it.
Joe has the personality and Joe has the content and he has the engagement, right? And so when they get there and they're like, this guy is really engaged, they have a lot. The typical person that we train, they don't come to the table with that. And they don't have the same recognition or credibility and often don't have the deep connections. So again, to Beth's point, for some people, it can work great we have found consistently across the board that the warm connection, that second degree, works if you can leverage the name with permission. If you can get in the door because someone that you are mutually connected with said, you got to talk to Beth, you got to talk to Joe. So that second degree is critical and absolutely vital, but we teach still don't cold call if that's the only thing that you've got going for you at this point. There can be a slower burn to that. Let's say my only shared connections are competitors who are not going to give me the permission to, you know, to drop their name, because they'll be like, oh, I'm going to reach out to them. I forgot about them, right? So that's when we go into the engagement, start engaging on their stuff. So this is if I have no other way in, I'll engage on their content. I'll look at what they shared, and then I will go out and find relevant content similar to that. And now I've engaged with them, and I'll say, hey, Jeff, I noticed you engaged on Joe Affelbaum's, you know, LinkedIn tricks content. He has another post that he put out there a few months ago on A, B, and C. If you're interested, I'm happy to send you Joe's other post, right? I already know you care about Joe. I'm not going to start the conversation with you care about Joe and I'm going to share my stuff. Let's share more of Joe's stuff.
That's a really big point. And one of the things that Bryn shared with me at a recent influencer conference, and we featured Bryn because Bryn is so brilliant. One of the things that she shared with me is that every single time you speak to a prospect, if you're doing sales, every time you speak to a prospect, always have an insight. Don't just communicate with somebody for the sake of communicating or for the sake of following up. Always have an insight ready. And Bryn is full of insights. So every single time you touch somebody, make sure that you're adding some insight, you're adding some value. And if you take Bryn's advice, you're going to get people that are not going to feel like you're selling them. Instead, you're going to feel like you're advising them and you're connecting with them and you're building trust with them. And if you build trust with people, that's going to allow them to want to connect, allow them to want to speak to you and all that. And another thing I have to say about second degree connections, the average person on LinkedIn has about 440 connections, according to LinkedIn. The average human being, the average account, the average CEO has 930 connections, but the average person has 440 connections. If you have 440 connections, you probably know all 440 or most of them, especially if you didn't just hit accept. If you're like Jeff Goldberg and you have 7,000 connections, you probably don't know many of them. You may know 1,000 or 2,000, but you probably don't know the other, 5,000 or so. But if you have a small account, you probably know those people. So a lot of people think, oh, nobody knows. It's because you have 10K, 20K connections. You can't know everybody. But if you have 400 connections, and many of the people that I send connection requests, believe it or not, I actually look to connect with people that have fewer connections. I actually look to connect with people that have fewer connections because, let me tell you my strategy here. When people have fewer connections, it's very likely that none of their connections are posting content. Very likely. Why? Because although there are 756 million people on LinkedIn and 40% are logging in frequently, there's only 1 million posts going up on LinkedIn every single day. And most of them are coming from me.
That's probably true.
So I want you guys to realize is if somebody has 400 connections on LinkedIn and you connect with them, it's very likely that the only post that they'll see is your post if you're posting every day. Or like me 3 times a day, they'll see all my posts because I'm the only person producing content on their feed for the most part. And so you're going to get a tremendous amount more benefit by having people that have fewer connections that you're connected to. Now, on the flip side of that, if you want to have an expanded second degree network to choose from, then you want to connect with some people that have larger networks because they will give you access to second degree. So what I tell people to do is instead of connecting with 1,000 people that each have 5,000 connections, connect with 30 people that have 30K plus or 20K plus. And the way that you find people that are 20K plus, I'm going to give you guys a hack right now.
I love this.
Just search the word 20K plus in LinkedIn. Just that word. A lot of people brag. I have 21K plus, 22K plus, 19K plus. So you just search and they write open networker, lion. I'm going to accept anybody. I'm a LinkedIn open networker. So if you search 21K plus or 22K plus on LinkedIn, you're going to see lots and lots of people that are happy to add you to their network. And if you would just connect with a few people that are relevant to you, that have the 20K plus, the 30K plus, or whatever it is, then you're going to expand your second degree network enough so that you can focus on connecting with, if you're doing chiropractors, connect with chiropractors that have fewer connections, and you're going to see those people are much more likely to respond, especially if they're also posting content. Go ahead, Bryn.
Yes,
I love this, and I know this because I learned it from you. You can do 20K plus and then click on all filters. So you have a keyword in there, but you go to all filters, and now I can do 20K plus in the greater New York area in this industry, and you might get 8, right? But I have now taken people that have large networks that also meet my criteria. And so that if you are now going to connect with them, they're, and it's not even just they meet your criteria. They're probably a lot of those connections are people that meet your criteria, because people will kind of circle around the same. So with that in mind, you can drill down with search. And this is in the free. The question everybody says now is, yeah, but I have the free. Yes. It's in the free. New feature in the free search, like 6 months now, but most people don't recognize. You used to only be able to do like greater New York City, but you can do Long Beach. You can do Flushing, right? I could do Bluebell, Pennsylvania, right? Like, so you can get really, if you sell locally or you're looking to do business, this is great for usually financial advisors and bankers, right? You can get, myopic in the free. You can get really myopically close to exactly the types of people you want to connect with.
So that brings us to our next question, Beth, I have the next question for you. But first, good morning, Jonathan Otero. Good to see you. And hey, good morning to my accountability partner, Tracy Kester. Good to see you this morning. Beth, Valerie Heffron, one of our really engaged Sales Pro Network members, she asks, is a LinkedIn premium subscription worth it?
Maybe.
Oh, I like that one.
I love that one because I talk about, everybody asks that. So first of all, to clarify the differences, there's premium, which just gives you more features on regular LinkedIn. And there's Sales Navigator, which is sort of a separate product that sits on top of LinkedIn. And there's a learning curve and has completely different features. They're like gym memberships. If you have them and you go and you use them, they can be worth it if you use them appropriately and correctly. But if you're not even using regular free LinkedIn to its fullest, you may not need to spend that time or money if you're not hitting roadblocks. But if there are things you want to be able to do that you can't do in the free, I actually typically advise skipping premium. If you're going to pay them, pay a little bit more and go to Sales Navigator, because you get so much more there. You get the ability to search by company size if that's important to you, the ability to make lists and use it like a CRM light. So again, like a gym membership, and if you're going to learn it and use it.
My favorite feature, guys, is checking to see who looked at my profile. Now, with the free version, you can see up to 5 people. But if you're active on LinkedIn, you probably have more than 50 to 100 people that looked at your profile in the past 90 days. I happen to have over 3,000, and some influencers have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. And we're not gonna be able to manage that. And I don't need the whole world looking at my profile. I wanna know, when does a potential ideal client look at my profile? So every single day I make it my practice. And like Bryn said, I keep it in my bookmarks. It's one of my 7 things that I do every day is I check who looked at my profile in the past 24 hours. I do this once a day. It takes me 3 minutes. And let's say there were 15 people that looked at my profile. Out of those 15 people, who are the 3 that are ideal clients? And I identify the 3. I send them a connection request. If I have their email, and I have a tool that gives me their email, you can use hunter.io to get people's emails. And I just send them an email. Say, hey, I noticed you looked at my profile. I'll send you a connection request. If you want to connect with me, feel free. If there was somebody that referred you or mentioned me, and that's the reason you connected, please let me know how I can add value to your life. Happy to chat anytime you need anything. And I just sent them an email, sent them a connection request, and boom. And what does that turn into? For me, it turned into $180,000 in revenue.
Wow.
And
I'm going to add to that, Joe, because something that I do a talk called Super Sneaky Strategies for using LinkedIn, which is hard to say, but I like the alliteration. I like looking not only for potential prospects, but what about when a first connection, so someone you know or are connected to, looks at your profile and you haven't talked to them in a while? This has led to so much business for me. So I noticed my friend Manny looked at my profile. I reached out and said, "Hey, Manny, noticed you stopped by my profile. How are you?" I didn't say in a creepy way, right? He said, "Oh, yeah, Susan said you're the person to talk to about LinkedIn training." If I hadn't noticed that and reached out, he might have gotten too busy and never called. What if Susan gave him 3 names and he called another person first and decided not to call the other people? So in addition to potential prospects, you can be sort of prospecting within your own network by looking at who viewed your profile.
Yeah. The question I often ask, close to what Joe talked about, is, and thanks for stopping by my profile. May I ask what brought you here today?
And I love the tip that you always give. Bryn always says you can reply to people when they send you a connection request without even connecting with them.
Yep.
Do you want to give that tip? Because that is such a juicy tip.
Yeah, so most people don't realize, and it doesn't work well on mobile, but on the desktop, even if they don't send you a connection message, if you go to your My Network tab and to see all your invitations, there is a message button. So if I get a connection request from someone and I don't know if I want to connect with them or not, I'm not sure, I can reply and I can say, "Hey, Jeff, thanks so much for the connection request. Typically I only connect with people I know. May I ask how you found me?" And I can ignore them, but guess what? They're now in my inbox. So I can go back and find them and I can see if they respond. If they don't respond, they're probably not going to be valuable in my network anyway.
Got it. Okay. Jonathan Otero says, "Hey, Beth Granger, that's exactly how we met. It wasn't creepy when I was professionally stalking you. Laugh out loud." And Fran Cole says, "Jeff, best Friday morning event ever. Thanks to all." I could talk to each of you separately all day and the 3 of you for weeks and weeks. We're running out of time, but there was one more question that somebody asked in advance, and I don't know if you're going to be able to get to it quickly, but Bryn, Greg Kettner, a friend of mine out in Walla Walla, Washington, says, "How do you build a community on LinkedIn?"
So, actually, Joe is probably a better person to answer this because Joe has great community.
Why don't you each take a quick stab at it?
So, the way that you build a community is to consistently engage back. Do not post and ghost. Right? The community people engage, but they want to be engaged back. So you have to make sure that if someone, even if they have a simple comment, that you're commenting to their comment. It also adds to the number of comments. But regardless, the way you build a community is to, I guess, 3 things, right? Make sure the content that you're posting is content they want to consume. It's bringing value into their world, whatever that is. Number 2, that you're engaging back and forth. And number 3, you are engaging on their content. So it's not a one-way street.
Got it. Beth?
I love it.
Anything to add about building a community?
Everything she said. So it's engaging. Everything you do on LinkedIn, think about it as if you were in person. So if you were in a room with a bunch of people, would you say that thing? What would you do to develop community or relationships with those people? The same thing. You would be curious about them. You would ask them questions. You would engage with their content. You would introduce them to other people. So it's all the same behavior. It's just online.
Got it. And Joe, anything to add? Joe, who, by the way, is both Joe Applebaum and a Facebook user today. If there's a hack, he knows it, boy.
Yeah. So what I would tell people is if you want to build a community on LinkedIn, the first step that you need to ask yourself is, number 1 is, what is my goal by building a community? Do I just want to get seen or do I want to generate business? Once you understand what your goal is and you're really specific around your business goal, your marketing goal, and your LinkedIn goals, like what do you want to achieve from the community and who do you want in your network, is figuring out who are the most ideal people that are going to be part of my community. You don't need thousands or millions of people, but if you can define your community by who are the most ideal people, for example, I have a community of marketing directors. I have a separate community of CEOs of Inc. 500 companies. I have a separate community of people that are engaged LinkedIn users, and I actually have a networking event every month. So if you want to build a community, define who the people are, make sure it aligns with your business goals, your marketing goals, and your LinkedIn goals, and then make sure that you have the right messaging that deals with their particular problem. So one of the things that I know engaged LinkedIn users are engaged, but they don't necessarily have real relationships. So what I do is I facilitate a meeting every month that my engaged LinkedIn users can come together, and we're having one this coming week, and you guys are all invited to join. You can go to ajaxunion.com/meetup, and you will find that there are 1,500 engaged LinkedIn users that are consistently building relationships with each other through our Zoom events in a Zoom meeting. And I facilitate breakout rooms, and it's a lot of fun, and you're all invited to come. So if you want to build a real community, the key word has to be real, not community. The key word has to be real, not community. When Katie Karlowitz leaves a comment on my post, I know Katie. I meet her several times a month. When Jeff Goldberg leaves a comment, or Bryn or Beth, I know these people. Me and Beth are part of the National Speakers Association. Me and Jeff speak several times a month, and occasionally I go to Atlantic Beach to watch his dog have a heart attack in the grass, and then we revive him. And then we sit there all traumatized for the next 24 hours and have to go biking together to kind of let that out. Me and Bryn, we have dinner together at Buff and Bun and enjoy burgers. And hopefully Jeff can come and join with me for a burger there in the near future, because he mentioned that in a comment on LinkedIn. These are real people that I have a real relationship. So don't focus so much on community, focus more on real if that's your goal. If you just want engagement, you can go on Upwork and find people that will engage in your content all day, believe it or not. You can find somebody, make 17 accounts for them, and I know some people do this, some people that have thousands of likes. Many of those likes are fake likes from fake users that they bought on Upwork. I don't
Really?
Yes.
So
I don't care about that. I don't care about that, because I know somebody who literally creates 200 accounts, hires somebody, pays them $300 a month, and then has them log into account by account every single day. And they don't post every day. They post maybe 2-3 times a week. And they get 50 to 100 accounts that are fake accounts that are liking on their stuff. It's a real thing. And you can use technology to do that as well. So people do that. And you can program. Yeah, people do that. So it's yuck to you, but to them, it makes them feel good that they have a certain amount of comments, because that's how they get business. They're like, look at me, I have 1,000 comments on my thing. Even though they're fake, you can buy followers. Go to Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com. You can buy followers for LinkedIn. You can buy followers for YouTube. You can buy comments. You can buy all this stuff. So if you have more, but that stuff is vanity metrics. That doesn't help you. For me, when a CEO of an Inc. 500 company that does $50 million in revenue leaves a comment on my post, and then I have a real offline conversation with that person, and I convert them into a client that pays me $150,000 or whatever it is over the course of the year, or they become a client that lasts for 5 or 10 years and they spend $1 million with my agency. That's why I'm doing it. I'm not just doing it to make noise. If I wanted to make noise and I wanted attention, I would go on the subway and I would take off my clothing.
and you would get plenty, Joe. Greg Kettner, who actually asked this question originally, says real is the key, and I'm with him 1,000,000%. Greg is actually he's a happiness speaker and coach. He helps people have more fun at work, and he built a group on Facebook of over 10,000 people very, very quickly. I'm trying to do the same thing here with the Sales Pro Network, but I very much, look, I love every time somebody joins, but I'm really looking for the right people to join. I want people who either sell for a living or sell as part of their job. I want to be connected to lots and lots of people here in the Sales Pro Network, but if you're not really in sales at all, it's kind of a waste of time for you. It really is vanity for me. I'd rather have 900 members than 800. I want to be like my friend Greg, who eventually has, I get up to 10,000. I really could talk to each of you all day, and the three of you for years and years, but we are out of time. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen quickly. And let's see. No, that's not it. No, that's not it either. All right. I'm blowing it today and we're out of time. So Joe, if people want to reach you, how can they get in touch with you? You're muted.
All you got to, I thought you can read my lips. All you got to do is go to joelinkedin.com. That takes you straight to my profile, and literally send me a connection request if we're not connected, and say, I saw you on Jeff's program. That's all you got. Or just mention Jeff Goldberg, hit connect, and I will accept it, and we'll build a relationship. That's the only thing that you need to do. Thank you.
Perfect. We're going to go to you next, Beth. But before we do, Katie, yes, you're asking, did I record this? It is in the Sales Pro Network under media, everything. This is live on LinkedIn, YouTube. It's also on our Sales Pro Network YouTube channel, and it's recorded on Facebook. Beth, how do people reach you if they want to talk to you?
Yeah, easiest way is to find me on LinkedIn. I put the link in the chat, but linkedin.com/in/Beth Granger. And just like Joe, if you want, I have the follow button as default now because I'm testing the creator mode, but you can click on the 3 dots and personalize the invitation. Say you saw me here.
Got it. And the amazing Bubby Bryn Tillman, how do people get in touch with you if they want to, Bubby?
My heart, just I hear the word even, and I'm all verklempt.
For those of you who don't know, Bryn's daughter had a child. How old is she now? 6 months?
5. She was 5 months yesterday.
Wow.
Yes, and if you follow Bryn on Facebook, you will see a lot of this. She loves her granddaughter like nobody else does. Bryn, how do people reach you if they want to? The queen of social selling.
So I'm still the only Bryn Tillman on LinkedIn, which is a good news. And I've got lots of free resources at linkedinlibrary.com. Just tons and tons of free resources. And I may even link this in that content library. So it will be another resource.
I love that domain.
Fantastic.
So cool. Check it out, check it out, check it out. I got Beth and Bryn. I know that you're in, cause everybody here just wants to make some money. Make a groove, leave a comment below. I wanna hear you boom in this room. 1, 2, 3. If you wanna get on LinkedIn, stop thinking, start doing. That's what I got for you today.
Nothing better than white people dancing. All right, my friends, we are over time here. As always, I adore each of you separately. I adore you even more together. Really, I love each of you, no kidding. And I love every member of the Sales Pro Network. Thank you for joining us today. Next week, I believe our guest is one of our members who has a side hustle. He's going to talk about doing side hustle. Ronnie Schnell's going to talk about that. And as I end all of these, please remember, sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there and make sales happen. Thanks, everyone.
Boom.
Have a great one.